One of the ways to describe Agile that I like the most is that Agile is about delivering value to customers sooner and faster. But how can we decide what we should be working on in order to deliver that value? So in our first Fireside chat of the day, Anna Dick, CTO at Hiring Hub, will talk to Maria Gutierrez, Senior Director of Engineering at Intercom, who will share with us her experience and lessons learned prioritizing the work of product and engineering teams during her 20 years of experience.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this first Fireside chat. Thanks very much for the introduction. Just so you know, the session will be recorded, but feel free to add any questions in the chat section at the bottom. Not sure where it is, and we'll hopefully get to a few of those at the end. If not, we'll hopefully be able to continue some of the discussions on Slack afterwards. So I'm Anna Dick, moderating today's session, CTO at Hiring Hub, and today with me is Maria Gutierrez. Sorry, that was a mistake. Senior Director of Engineering and co-site lead Intercom. So can you tell me a bit more about you and also how to pronounce your name? Sorry, I stuttered then.
It's Gutierrez, no worries. So first of all, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really looking forward to having this chat and then listening to the other talks and fireside chats. I am currently part of the R&D leadership team at Intercom. And for us, R&D is product and engineering. So when you hear me say R&D, it's all product and engineering teams. But with my product partner, Jane Honey, I'm also site lead for our London office, where I'm responsible for our engineering teams there. In London, we are focusing on building Intercom's customer support solutions, but I also lead our global R&D operations function that really aims to remove friction and improve delivery momentum across product and engineering as we are scaling. We also enable, as part of that work, our colleagues in other functions like marketing, sales, support, or finance.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maria. So it's great to be able to share our experience and learn more about all things delivery over the next 3 days. But a large part of that is about how we plan and prioritize work in our teams and how we decide what to do next. So for many, this means using roadmaps. And Maria, interestingly, not long before we caught up about this, I'd listened to a great podcast from one of your founders about the evolution of roadmaps at Intercom. And it sounds like since that kind of small initial founding team, product thinking and roadmapping has evolved quite a lot. Can you explain how the process works at Intercom now?
Yeah, so our roadmap process is definitely in constant evolution. Like everything that we do, we continue to iterate and learn from what we need to do and change it. So I joined Intercom a little over 2.5 years ago. And in that time, we've had multiple iterations to respond to the priorities of the business, but also the changes in our way of working and the makeup of the organization. As it has been growing, we've had to adapt as well. We are now about 250 people in R&D building software for a lot larger businesses that we used to build software for a few years ago. And that has really required as well to approach the way that we build roadmaps in a different way. And as of today, each team has a roadmap. And we update roadmaps every quarter. And this cadence gives us a good balance between both agility and stability. And that means agility to adapt to the evolving company priorities, what we learn from our customers. We're very customer focused, and the competitive landscape as well. And also stability for teams, both inside and outside of product and engineering, to really focus on execution and have the ability to get things done. Each roadmap contains a list of initiatives that the team has prioritized for that quarter, and the milestones that they're planning to hit, and the outcomes that they're aiming for. And those milestones can vary from a specific piece of research to agreeing to the problem statement to get a design concept or a tech plan in place, or run a beta, ship to all customers, or share as well an outcome report for a project that might have shipped a few months ago. Some of those things happen all kind of, if it's a short project, it goes end to end, but it might be that it straddles multiple quarters depending on what phase we are of that initiative. We also add a few candidate projects in case we have more capacity, or in case we are blocked on a specific initiative, or we decide to drop some items through the quarter. And this allows us to move faster with an agreed set of priorities if things happen to change. Teams with clearer long-term strategies will also give an indication at this point of our directional long-term initiatives for upcoming quarters. We mark those projects based on the level of certainty that this is something we will work on, whether it's planned, likely, or speculative, but it's not a commitment. We might learn things that change the way we think we should proceed, and we don't want to be kind of fixed by those commitments if we can avoid it. Roadmaps then are reviewed and socialized across R&D, kind of all across all the teams, and also with our go-to-market kind of partners and leadership. And we do that to make sure that we are accounting for dependencies, or that we tell the right story to the market. And once agreed, we add them to our kind of documentation hub, where everybody in the company has access to see what has been agreed and what is happening with different projects on a week-by-week basis. And once all teams finally have agreed the roadmaps, we put together like a little summary master piece of work kind of that we share with everybody internally, so everybody in the company knows what their priorities are and what we're focusing on. And we also make available a customer version that our sales teams can socialize. And unless there's a lot of certainty, we tend to just communicate the type of problems that we're tackling versus the solutions, or avoid dates, so that we have flexibility in our priorities if we learn something and we decide to change things.
Yeah, that's great that you're leaving time for the flexibility on the priorities. So how do you go about executing on those roadmaps in your teams?
It's a good question. We're very goals oriented as an organization, but we're also very focused on learning quickly and adapt. So from those agreed roadmaps, teams then plan in more fidelity, like 6-week cycles. So we do 2 6-week cycles every quarter. And at the end of each week within those cycles, the team retrospects on the current week and plan for the following week. And then they make adjustments to our plans if needed. And we do a little bit of bigger planning sessions for the following 6-week cycle. And kind of roadmaps for us, they're not set in stone. We'll revisit if we clarify kind of previous assumptions, and as a result, we feel we should point in a different direction. We do, however, ship constantly every day as things are ready to go. So we're not in a release train kind of every week or every 6 weeks or anything like that. And last year we shipped over 15,000 times a year across all the different repos.
That's excellent. So yeah, I really love the way that you're constantly evolving the process and making sure that you have those retrospective points. Can you give me a bit more insight into the inputs into the process?
So our roadmaps, we believe that they're only as good as the inputs we use to make the decisions about what goes into them. And this is an area that we have been working a lot on evolving over the last few years. And they are roadmaps are a representation of the work we are going to do to deliver on our company goals. And because of that, we build our roadmaps by evaluating 4 different inputs and determining which ones are the most impactful to contribute to ultimately Intercom's success in our case. And that includes short-term, but also long-term opportunities. So the 4 inputs that we look at as we make those decisions about what goes into the roadmap are product health inputs, our strategy and our vision are an important input as well, product gaps, and what we call product commercial success would be the 4th one.
Oh, great. I'm curious to hear more about each of those. Should we start with product health?
Yeah, so at Intercom roadmaps are built by the whole team, not just by the product manager. So in our case, engineering managers and engineers are responsible for making sure that systems concerns are actually taken into consideration as much as new product features. And that is why, like today, you have an engineering leader talking about roadmaps instead of a product leader. And it really, something is really not working well if you constantly hear from your engineering team that none of the necessary technical work is being prioritized. And I think that's something that probably all of us here have been exposed to at some point in our career. So to address that specific issue, we introduce an explicit product health input to our roadmap rationale documents. And what we cover there is operational work needed to either protect and improve our availability, security, cost, or our ability to scale. We might also include what we call everyday health, kind of work to address parts of the product that are particularly buggy, slow, or confusing. And finally, work that will improve our ability to what we call move fast, our ability to move fast and to deliver those changes very quickly. And that might include either tackling parts of the code base that are difficult or brittle to change and to work with, that are slowing out our CI, CD pipeline, etc. And the sources that we use to determine all of those inputs are kind of our availability or security, velocity risks, registers, our SLAs, incident review logs and actions, or our defect dashboard. So we'll use all that information to kind of make a recommendation of things that we need to tackle.
Okay, great. And you talked about inputs from the company strategy and vision.
Yeah, so
expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so one, obviously, a very, very important input is our company strategy and vision. We have roughly a 2-year company strategy with a number of programs that we are going to focus on. And those programs inform the work of many teams in R&D and outside R&D as well. So one team can potentially support multiple of those strategies. In London, we focus on the conversational support program, and that's kind of very much our single focus. But all our vision also guides kind of our choices. More than anything, reminds us to innovate and to take bets that will bring us closer to our long-term ambitions, maybe things that no one is yet asking for or know they need yet, but that can set us apart from our competitors. And that's a very important input to take into account as well. And then we talked about product gaps as being the third one. And this is a very straightforward input. It's about addressing kind of those pressing needs for our existing customers and problems that we are not solving that are blocking potentially prospective customers from buying our product and using kind of our product. And those are straightforward, like gather information from customer voice reports or outcome reports from the software that we've just shipped and iteration on the software that we've just shipped, or our sales team product feedback requests, lost deals feedback, as well are different ways that we can identify those. And the final one that I was mentioned was more about product commercial success, and those are more initiatives that more directly impact our commercial or revenue goals. We might focus, for example, on first use experience activation, expansion initiatives, and for example, something that happens every so often, especially if you're working with bigger clients, bigger customers, like a high value customer might need some commitment to address a defect or a feature request. And we don't normally kind of prioritize work that doesn't fit, well, normally or never, that doesn't fit our strategy, but we might bring that work forward if it was planned to be addressed kind of later in the year and fits with what we're trying to do strategically. At times, we might actually choose to sacrifice some short-term revenue to focus on an initiative that we think will be more successful kind of longer term, but sometimes we'll also modify plans slightly to take advantage of those timely opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, great. So each of those, I guess, even in isolation, seem quite important. Yeah. How do you kind of manage the weighting between those in terms of even the prioritization of those areas?
That's a really good question. I think that's always that's the 100 million pounds question. I believe that the key to a successful roadmap is not necessarily doing a bit of everything. It's about having that conviction as a team about what we think we will have the biggest impact and that best aligns with the business goals, and really kind of try to focus on that. But I think it's important to have the awareness of the trade-offs that you are making to focus on that things. And if we feel we are taking too much risk or that we're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table, we then should explore if other teams can take the work, or we might need to make a case for extra capacity. But at least you are making explicit decisions there. That said, I think, and something that I've tried to do through my career and normally becomes a little bit of a problem, it's sometimes good to aim for a balance across the whole portfolio of projects so that you can hit kind of your business goals across the board. So if a team is fully focused on a big bet, some speculative work, you might balance that with other teams' roadmaps being more focused on commercial impact, if that's what's important. Or if your NPS or your churn is a concern, then you might need to focus some teams on gaps and product health to make sure you're taking care of all aspects of the work that you do.
Yeah, of course. Great. So I'm sure you've seen lots of different approaches to road mapping in your career. But what do you feel are the main benefits of using that kind of process?
So for me, when I think about roadmaps, is a way, firstly, for teams to rationalize and state how they can help hit the business goals. You give them enough context and they have enough understanding of the customer, and that they are in a position to demonstrate that ownership and the understanding of the customer's problems, and they have their opinions of how they can contribute to the success. I think it's also an important form of accountability, and accountability not as if you don't do it, you get fired, or if you don't hit all the goals and milestones, you get fired, but more as this is something that matters, that we should report on and evaluate progress regularly, and that we need to understand why our assumptions or plans didn't work as we expected, so that we can learn and improve and hopefully make better decisions in the future, or just learn more about our customers. And that's also a positive outcome. But I would say, Leslie, as important as those two things are, I believe roadmaps bring much needed kind of alignment and focus, both within the team and with other teams. There is a point when you just need to get to execute and ship and learn. I think Ellie was talking about experimenting. Sometimes you just don't have the right information or all the data, and you just need to get and try to test and see what you learn. So you need to provide as well the visibility around what you're trying to do, so that others can execute too. It's not you in a vacuum. Kind of there's other team, operations or marketing or support, other teams that depend on your work, or other teams that they might be trying to solve exactly the same problems, and then it's just wasteful. So by socializing this information, hopefully we have a more coherent approach to the work that we're doing.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think we've got time for one last question before we maybe go for some audience questions. So that sounds like that's maybe some of the happy path that you've described there, which is great. But what are some of the risks to this approach, and what could go wrong?
Many things can go wrong, but I think like the things that I've found, and that I think you need to be quite kind of thoughtful about, is especially as you get very focused on goals, and especially commercial goals, sometimes you might over-optimized for sure things. So short-term gains kind of at the expense of working on your differentiators or kind of your mode and building a platform that scales. And then sometimes you find that actually that might do more damage, and innovation takes a big hit because you're just focusing on those sure things. You're also kind of just chasing dollars or closing gaps, kind of features that competitors might have. So you get caught into that trap. And that can be quite damaging for the future survival of the business. On the other hand, without hitting kind of those short-term revenues, there might not be any need for a scalable product because your company might go broke. So you really need to understand where you place your bets. The other risk is to fall into analysis paralysis. The more inputs you have and the more information, you might end up overthinking those inputs and fail to make decisions because you always need more data. And at some point, as we were saying, we just need to go with your product judgment and intuition and make decisions with imperfect inputs, and you just need to experiment. And sometimes shipping something and learning from it is a much better option, my point of view.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's fab. That's some really good information. So I think we've got a couple of questions. There'll be time for questions. Let me just see, we can bring them on the screen. So we've got one from Sashin. So typically the product roadmap and platform technical roadmap would be separate. Has anyone tried having a single roadmap, or have you at Intercom, do you have a single roadmap? Do you knit them together?
Yeah, so what we try to focus is a team's roadmap includes all the different inputs. And in our case, what we try to focus is what is the strategy for the product. And a lot of the times, like for our bot strategy, in our support use case, automated support, our technical strategy for bots is part of our product strategy because they are intertwined and they are one thing. So when we build the roadmaps, we decide both aspects of them and the things that we're going to invest on. Sometimes you have maybe technical strategies that are more for the whole engineering for the platform, for the company. And I think what we do then is make sure that we take that as an input, as I was saying, whether it's around product health or the strategic. Like if we say that we want to support a European data center, that would be something, there's some work that potentially all teams might have to do to that. So we just need to make sure kind of that's our role. And as engineering leaders is to work with the teams to make sure that those things are being addressed in the right team. Or sometimes a specific team might do the work, but they'll need to closely collaborate with the people that own the systems.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I think that's us out of time, actually. So we can always answer the other questions on Slack. So thank you, Maria. Thank you very much for joining us today. So you can connect with Maria and myself after the session on social media, and the links will be shared shortly. So thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Anna.